His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer. No budget too steep, no sea too deep. Who's that? It's him, James Cameron.
James Cameron, the second highest grossing director of all time, has just released the third film in his Avatar franchise. James Cameron is one of the biggest directors of all time, and despite that, he has a pretty small amount of films. He's only directed 10 films across 43 years of being a director. I have seen all of his films and would like to rank him, so let's just jump into it. Number 10, Piranha 2, The Spawning. James Cameron's first feature film, Piranha 2, The Spawning, is completely terrible, but it's also a pretty enjoyable time. The film tells the story of mutant piranhas who have gained the ability to fly as they wreak terror off the coast of a Caribbean island. I don't really have that much to say about this film. I mean, it's bad, the plot's not good, the story's dumb, the characters aren't interesting. I mean, the opening scene of the film are two people who are scuba diving and they decide to have sex while underwater, and as they are in the act, they get attacked and killed by mutant piranhas. This is not a good film, but it's not really trying to be, so you can't really be too mad about it. If you want to watch a dumb movie and laugh at it, this is a pretty good pick for a movie to laugh at. Watch with some friends, have a good time. If I had to compliment the movie, I'd say the practical effects are pretty decent, which makes sense because James Cameron's background before he started directing was in practical effects, and that's what got James Cameron hired to direct this film, so that's kind of cool, I guess. Anyway, I really just do not have much to say about this one. It's terrible, but it's also fun to watch. 3 out of 10. Number 9, Avatar, Fire and Ash. The latest film by James Cameron and the third installment in the Avatar franchise was a little disappointing. Do not be fooled by its placement, second worst on the list, because this is still a pretty good film, but when your filmography is as stacked as James Cameron is, and so little as James Cameron is, something just has to take these low spots, and unfortunately, this placement goes to his latest film. Avatar, Fire and Ash tells the story of Jake Sully and his family grieving over their son's death. As this is happening, Quaritch continues on his mission to hunt down Jake Sully. To do this, he forms an alliance with a group of evil Na'vi known as the Ash People, led by Varang. Starting off with what I liked about the film, the Ash People are a fantastic addition to the franchise. They directly subvert and go against everything we expect about the Na'vi people and culture. The leader Varang, played by Una Chaplin, is incredible, very fun, scary, and even sexy character. Quaritch is also great in this film. I love his relationship with Varang, how they develop throughout the film. You really feel like, compared to the last film, how much he has really come into living as this avatar now, and how he's accepted it as who he currently is. I love the bit in the movie where he just out of nowhere is fully in the Ash People war paint. I thought it was really funny. No one else seemed to laugh in the theater, but I kind of laughed out loud. Kind of embarrassing, but whatever. The relationship between him and his son Spider is interesting. I like seeing how his priorities change whenever Spider is involved. Like in a final fight where he dives over the edge to save Spider, and it really just goes to show the only thing that he wants in his life is to do his job, which is to kill Jake Sully. The visual effects are just amazing as always, as good as the last one. I saw this 3D IMAX and it was a great experience, just an absolute spectacle how beautiful the film looked, especially those water scenes. There's a bit where the camera just dips below the tide and it's so immersive. I don't know why, but I love that so much. I feel like James Cameron is one of the best action directors of all time, and that really continues in this film. Almost every action scene I'm just so engaged with all the moving pieces and spectacle of it all. I really love the first act of the film. The jungle section and the chase is very well paced and interesting. I love seeing Jake and Quaritch having to work together, and the initial encounter and seeing how scary of a force the Ash People are was really amazing. The ambush on the trade ships was probably my favorite action scene in the movie. It was great and so immersive. Bit of a minor complaint before I get to the biggest stuff. The trade air people was an interesting bit of world building, but they did not actually have any other role in this film or do anything other than be used as a plot device for them to have this action scene. So they all just die here, and the action scene has no greater purpose for their characters. On to the actual complaint about this film, however, is that the middle section of this movie is kind of boring. The film keeps re-threading over familiar plot points from the last film, and I don't understand why we went back to that ocean area. I really would have loved if we could have explored a different environment to make this film feel more unique and stand out. And it really just makes the film blend in even more with the second movie, Way of Water. Also really didn't enjoy the whale plotline either. once again, it's mostly repeated ideas from the other film, and as someone who had just rewatched it the day before, it caused this section of the movie to be so insufferable because it's just the same plot lines but not done as well. So it just bothers me. And even though I wasn't fully disengaged with the film at this point, once Jake got arrested along with Spider being captured, this whole section of the movie is pointless. If you cut out this part of the film, the only thing that is removed from the story is Carmela Soprano meeting Varang. The plotline is only in this film to add on another half an hour to pad out the story, to pad out the runtime, and to make this film just slightly different from the rest of the movies. Because if you take this out, it's the exact same story as the last film, just with a couple extra bad guys. The action scene of Sully being saved was okay, I guess, but wasn't as good as the rest of the film's action. It all felt very easy, convenient, very simple, and the lack of actual stakes in this section made me feel very bored, which continued until the final battle started. I think the only thing that makes this film feel any different from the others is the inclusion of the Ash people. Otherwise, it's just part of The Way of Water, but not as good as The Way of Water. The final battle of the film for me, for the most part, is still pretty great, but still my least favorite battle in the franchise. I think the main reason for this is because of how familiar all of it feels, which I keep saying it over and over again because it's true, it's the main problem for this movie. Because they just copy elements from the first two films' third acts, except not as good. It starts with Jake Sully finding the red bird and he tells all the local clans to join him, just like the first movie. The battle is trying to stop whale hunters from hunting whales, just like the second movie. The battle takes place at a sacred site, just like the first movie. After they have the all is lost moment, the battle is won after someone prays, which causes Iwa to send some animals we saw earlier in the film to attack the humans, saving the day, just like the first movie. The final piece of action is a one-on-one fight between Jake and Quaritch, just like both of the other movies. Another thing I didn't like about this third act was how Varang just left and she's never seen again. It felt out of character for her not to keep fighting it. She just kind of left because the movie was felt like she had nothing else to do and they didn't want to mess up their story, so they said she gets scared and flies away, which just doesn't work with it at all. And I really hope that they bring her character back for her to do more cool shit, because she was easily the best part of this film. And while I still enjoy this movie, it's very frustrating to watch the same plot elements happening over and over again. But at the very least, the action is still great to watch, and the direction from Cameron is still top tier. I feel like this movie really hasn't offered anything new to the franchise to make it feel worth watching, and it was just way too long. 7 out of 10, still good time. Number 8, True Lies. True Lies tells the story of Harry Tasker, a secret agent who works to fight terrorists. He has his priorities distracted when he discovers that his wife might be having an affair with a used car salesman. This is a very fun, silly action movie with a great lead performance by Arnold Schwarzenegger. One of his best performances, his comedic performance is hilarious and he nails all the comedic moments in this movie. And obviously, as always, his performance in action scenes are fantastic. Jamie Lee Curtis plays his wife Helen Tasker. She's also great in this film. I feel like their performance and dynamic for each other was easily the highlight of the film for me. The dynamic of him being a secret agent and she has no idea and he thinks he's just a boring office worker. The irony coming into play when Helen starts to pursue an affair with a mysterious man who claims that he is a secret agent when in reality he's just a used car salesman. This major subplot is easily the best part of the film. It's so silly and over the top. The salesman, played very well by Bill Paxton, is such a douchebag, setting up elaborate plans to sleep with women, pretending to be a secret agent when he's just a coward. The sequence of them using their spy technology to spy on them to track what was happening was very fun. The humor of the film was a definite highlight. Tom Arnold's character brought a great dynamic between him and Arnold. The action in the movie is great. I love the horse chase in the first act. It's so absurd and funny. But Arnold gets the tone perfectly to create such a great action scene. The fight in the bathroom before this is also very good, well choreographed. The final action scene where they find the jet is another highlight. It's such a memorable and immersive, really impressive set piece. And the way they filmed it, all behind the scenes stuff and put it together was very impressive. The thing that holds the movie back for me personally is that the actual terrorist plot line I found pretty dull and standard and just nothing really special and interesting. And when the movie got back to this plot line, I kind of lost interest and the movie stopped feeling special. But then once the action picked up again, I got back into it and I was like, heck yeah, cool movie, you know what I mean? And the villains in the film, they're just not memorable, and I struggle to remember if they had any motives other than wanting to nuke the US. True Lies is a very fun, silly action movie with some great creative action scenes, but is being held back by its very uninteresting and weak villains when its subplot about Arnold spying his wife was much more fun and interesting. 7 out of 10. Number 7, The Abyss. The Abyss is a story of a civilian oil rig team who was sent on a diving mission to search and rescue a missing nuclear sub which mysteriously sunk. Through the journey, they discover information that could change the world forever. Being honest, I think the backstory and how this movie was filmed is the most interesting thing about this movie. Not to say this movie isn't interesting, it's just that what the stories about what happened in this movie are fucking crazy. They built this set underwater in a giant water tank that was 10 meters deep. There were multiple incidents of near drowning, including James Cameron and Ed Harris. One day, Ed Harris ended up punching James Cameron in the face during filming of the CPR scene. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio had a breakdown after having to deal with excessive takes. One day, there was a blackout on set, and the entire cast and crew were left in complete darkness until power was restored. The excessive chlorine in the water caused chemical burns on cast and crew's skin. There was famously a difficult shoot which many of the actors refused to even acknowledge or talk about. This was definitely a case of James Cameron trying to push things too far. And honestly, even though it was a total disaster to film, I still really appreciate his innovation and ambition to film the movie in such a challenging way. And even more impressive, he still managed to make a pretty good film. Now on to my actual opinions of the movie. It's a pretty solid sci-fi film with some flaws, but overall pretty good. I will say that I've only seen the director's cut of this film, and just looking at what parts were removed for the theatrical release, I don't think there would ever be a reason to watch that version, but I'll get into this later. What I liked about this film is the environment and setting. The underwater aspect really adds a lot to the tension and claustrophobia of it all. The visual effects in the film were groundbreaking for the time and still hold up. That scene with the water tentacle and it replicates the face is pretty cool and laid the groundwork for what James Cameron would end up doing in Terminator 2. All of the sci-fi elements in the film I found interesting, and I am glad they were explored in this film. The dynamic between the divorced couple Virgil and Mary was very interesting and brought on a natural conflict between them, and seeing how they reconcile with their past throughout the film was really great to see. It's also really interesting because James Cameron and his wife, who produced the film, were actually going through a divorce while making this film, which adds on to all the crazy behind the scenes stuff. So it's interesting how that experience pretty shaped how he directed these two characters. I especially love the scene between them on the sub as it's bringing in water. It's so intense. The following scene, which gets CPR, is also really intense, but also has my biggest pet peeve in movies and TV, which is when someone is getting punched in the chest to save them during CPR. It's just so stupid and always takes me out of whatever I'm watching. Person listening, if you are ever performing CPR, do not punch the patient in the chest. That does not help them at all. Anyway, I also really like the scene where Ed Harris is going down to disarm the nuke. It's quite intense, and the dialogue of the communicator is really good. The sequence of water filling up areas is also really intense. Most of the performances were great, and Harris is really strong. There are a lot of actors in this film, and everyone does a pretty solid job. There are a lot of great ideas in this film, such as the breathable liquid. This film really feels like a bunch of ideas that James Cameron had, which he couldn't put into his other movies, and he was scared that he could never make another movie, so he just threw everything into this film, which makes for a lot of interesting concepts and ideas, but unfortunately means those ideas don't get explored to the greatest depths that they could be explored to. The third act of this film is pretty crazy, but doesn't really have a strong impact on me, as it feels like James Cameron really places an insane amount of ideas into the third act, but really the film as a whole, the film's climax of the aliens saying they would destroy the world because of how awful humans are, feels kind of hollow and preachy to try and give your film more importance. Also find the movie to be a bit slow in parts, especially the second act of the film doesn't really keep me hooked throughout. The Abyss is mostly interesting sci-fi film, which while being a great technical achievement, feels like it could have used more time developing the plot and ideas, truly give it the full impact, and the ending just doesn't completely work for me, but I still like it. Overall, pretty solid movie. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Number 6, Avatar: The Way of Water. The second installment in the Avatar franchise, and this one is pretty good. The film is set about a decade and a half after the first film. Jake Sully has grown a family and lives as a warrior, still fighting against the human forces. Sully and his family are forced to hide out in a water village to avoid Quaritch, who is hunting him and his family down. I remember when I saw this movie back in 2022, and I remember I thought it would suck, but it actually ended up getting blown away, and I kind of loved the movie. The film is so impressive, visually beautiful. The improvement in CGI since the first film was truly incredible to see, to the point where it's hard to believe that what you are seeing isn't actually real and blends in with the actual real stuff and the CGI so well. I truly believe that both this film and Fire and Ash have the best visual effects of all time, and that it probably is not that spicy of a take. This movie feels like an experience where you're supposed to go into the cinema and get immersed in the world for 3 hours and fall in love with it. James Cameron's direction is very big and bold, and it feels kind of effortless in some ways, if that makes sense. Of how big the film is, you kind of get the feeling that he's in a bit of a flow state of how he creates and explores this massive world. The world building in this film is great, exploring a whole different part of this world, new environments and creatures. It was fantastic. I really liked the first act of the movie. Quaritch and his crew holding Jake's kids in the woods hostage, leading to a great action scene. Spider is a character I'm a little mixed on, but his relationship with his father is quite interesting, and I really want them to explore this further in some way in the next films. Quaritch continues to be great. I loved how they brought him back as an avatar and seeing how his military perspective and what he does and how he uses that to try and solve his problems. It's very interesting. The new children characters are fairly interesting. I don't love their characters, but they can hold their own in this film. I feel like they are definitely the protagonist of this movie instead of Jake, which I'm fine with because he isn't that interesting of a character. And the series is definitely set up for its children to continue to take center stage in the future. The second act of the film, which is mainly world building, is good for the most part. The whole whale subplot is decent. Seeing the kids be dickheads to each other was mostly fun. But this does lead into the major problem I have with the film. Because while I enjoyed the world building, and especially when I first saw this movie in theaters, I was in awe of exploring and learning about this world. But rewatching the film, the magic just isn't really there anymore in the second act. And I still enjoy it, but I'm not like bored, but it just doesn't keep me invested, and I spend most of the time trying to figure out how many more scenes are left until the third act starts. The thing that really hurts the film is when you're rewatching and you're not sucked into this world, I realize there isn't actually a story to the movie. There is the inciting incident with Quaritch coming back to Jake and his family going to hiding, but after that it's just fucking around the water for over an hour until they run into each other again and they fight. There's no urgency to what's happening, nothing driving them, nothing to keep them engaged. Once I'm familiar with the world and I don't get the experience to like the magic, there's no arc or momentum to the film. They just mess around until eventually something happens. But when something finally did happen and the action scene started, we were in for a wild ride. The third act of this film is incredible. I love it. It takes a moment to get going, but the action is big and exciting, and James Cameron really knows how to make some of the best action sequences of all time. The first half of the battle is good. It's mostly just involves the kids getting kidnapped repeatedly and getting rescued to the point where it feels a little silly, but I don't mind it too much. I love seeing the whale fuck up boats, seeing the water try to fight alongside Sully, as well as Jake using his new animal to fly and get into a fight with Quaritch. It was all awesome. But once their son dies and the eclipse starts, this battle goes into something else. Jake and Neytiri go back to that sinking ship and they are back for blood. We get no holding back, full violence from these two as they take down everyone from the ship. This is easily my favorite action scene in the franchise so far, especially when Neytiri jumps onto the ship. This incredible piece of score is playing in the background. It's amazing, and she goes beast mode, and then she grabs an arrow, stabs a guy, and holds up his body and shoots the arrow at someone else. It's crazy. Then after this, the ship fully begins to start sinking, and we get a pretty great sequence of them trying to survive until the fight between Jake and Quaritch. The sequence is great, but the aftermath of it, of them getting out of the ship on a rewatch, feels really long and a little too slow once you know they're going to be alright. But still, the third act of the film is amazing. And another small complaint, I really don't like how little Neytiri is used in this film. She's my favorite character in the series. She's a badass. And I wish she was used more. I originally liked this film the most in the franchise, but on rewatch, the aimless wandering in the second act mixed with the complete lack of story really holds the film back for me. It isn't a boring movie and the action is incredible, but without a story and mainly focusing on world building, it makes it a little harder to enjoy in rewatches. 8 out of 10. Number 5, Avatar. The first film in this blockbuster franchise, Avatar tells the story of Jake Sully, a man sent on a mission to a dangerous planet of Pandora. Jake takes on the experimental body of his avatar to appear as a native of the planet. Jake becomes accepted by the natives and his loyalties become torn between his humanity and the world of Pandora. First thing I need to get out of the way, I know the plot of this movie is not original. It's very similar to Pocahontas and Dance with the Wolves and Last Samurai, but I really just could not care. The story isn't extremely original, but it works fine enough for the movie, and I'm not watching this film for a complex story. I watch it because of the world that we get to explore and inhabit. Just because the film story isn't original doesn't automatically make the film bad. And I think what sets this film apart from its sequels, to me, even though they might have some better action sequences, is that this film actually has a story where something is happening. The plot is in motion and moving forward. The second act, when we are learning about the Na'vi people, there's an actual story happening. There's a reason why we are given so much, exposition, that's the word. I don't know why I couldn't think of it, sorry. Jake is building a connection with the Na'vi people, which makes the situation for what to do about the military wanting to mine more challenging. This is different to the sequels, which features almost no story and things just sort of happen until there is eventually a big battle at the end. In this movie, the third act battle is a result of the actions that take place during the story. The story is always in motion and moving. It's not waiting in places for the baddies to show up so there can be a big fight. At its core, the film is a tech demo, and James Cameron made a risky film to show off the capabilities of visual effects, and the visual effects in this film are fantastic. They were a huge improvement from the films made before this and really ushered in a new era of visual effects. The visual effects in this film all hold up very well. There might be some moments where it looked a little video gamey, but for the most part it looks great. Obviously the film was in 3D as well, which added to the experience of the film, because as I said, at its core this film is more about the immersive experience and spectacle of it all. The world building and detail in the world that James Cameron created is really incredible. The detail in the environment and animals makes the world feel so real and alive. Being able to see how this different culture operates and their connections to nature and religion is really interesting. The villain of the movie, Quaritch, played by Stephen Lang, is probably my favorite character in the series. I know I just said Neytiri was, but I guess I'm a liar. He doesn't seem like anything special, he's just a generic military guy, but Stephen Lang's performance is just so good, and I love how focused he is on completing his mission, even if he is a bit comically simple. I feel like it is done on purpose. I feel like it's done on purpose. I love the scene where he goes out to shoot at the helicopter without a mask. It's kind of badass. The third act of the film is also very good. The big epic battle with lots of build up and James Cameron's direction and scale he gave to the battle was incredible. I really love the fight between Jake and Quaritch in his mech suit. It's a great battle with some solid intensity. The film's score is amazing. Very kind of hard to describe it. I don't know why I brought it up without any additional detail. Great score. One more thing I have to defend the movie before I get into negatives. A lot of people make fun of the movie for calling the stuff they're mining unobtainium. I could not give a shit what this rock is called. It has a dumb science name. Scientists give dumb names to things all the time. Who cares what the movie decided to name the damn rock? It's just nitpicking something which isn't even a problem, so that people who hate this film can say the rock's name and be like, hey, isn't that dumb? Now, if this isn't a perfect movie, it's got problems, but I don't think the name of a rock is one of them. An actual problem with the movie is that there are a lot of characters are not very interesting and quite generic. Sometimes it works, like Quaritch is generic, but it makes him fun. On the other hand, Jake Sully, the main character, isn't that interesting of a protagonist. And I feel like his character should probably be more layered and really show the kind of conflict he's going through. I do really like Neytiri, which I think I mentioned in my Way of Water section. I just recorded that. Don't know why I have that in the script. But she's also great in this movie, and I think Zoe Saldana does a great job portraying the character. Another problem, while it makes sense, I don't love how they get saved by the animals showing up to fight the humans. I feel like it doesn't have much impact, but I understand how it works and connected to the environmental themes of the movie. I just wish they didn't so easily save the day. This film can also feel quite melodramatic at times, especially the whole liar revealed moment and then the dad dying only for them to eventually reconcile just in time for the big battle. It's fine, but never really feels like anything is at stake because I know everything will be fine eventually. Overall, I think Avatar is a great sci-fi action movie. It doesn't have the greatest plot or the greatest characters of all time, but the world building and action more than make up for it. 8 out of 10. Number 4, The Terminator. James Cameron's first actual movie, The Terminator, tells the story of a cyborg assassin who was sent from the future to find and assassinate Sarah Connor, a woman who will give birth to a son who will save mankind from the robot apocalypse. This is a very impressive movie for James Cameron, especially as a follow-up to his first film, Piranha 2, The Spawning. The movie was filmed on a pretty small budget of $6 million, and yet the whole film feels very big, and you really wouldn't be able to guess the film was working on a limited budget. It's also really interesting to see how James Cameron is able to work on a smaller budget compared to his unlimited budget he's working with today. Especially in those future sequences, the set design, the lighting, the use of miniatures and practical effects create a very futuristic vibe. The movie is full of great mixes of practical and special effects. I love the makeup on Arnold, even if it looks a little silly in some places. I love how the skin tears off and decays throughout the film, with the Terminator ending up on his metal skeleton. Had a great mixture of practical effects, mixed visual effects and stop motion. It's such a great impressive sequence. A decent amount of the film was filmed using guerrilla tactics, which means filming in areas without permits, which adds to the kind of cheaper feel of the movie, I guess. The action throughout the film is amazing. The club scene till they get arrested was probably my favorite part of the film. The directing is very impressive. He made the scene very intense, especially on our first watch when we don't have a clear idea of what is actually happening. Arnold Schwarzenegger as a Terminator is a perfect casting. While he isn't that great of an actor, he is perfect for this monotone role. Every line delivered by him is for the cyborgs is just what it's supposed to be. And Terminator is also one of the scariest villains in film. These unstoppable force that can effortlessly tear through a whole police station with no issue. It's not really a horror movie, but I feel like if this was filmed in more of an intense way, it really could have been one. Especially that third act with Cyborg waking up and crawling towards Sarah, that's some scary stuff, man. The score for the film is very great, kind of low-key, like a dun dun dun, kind of like a bit of a scary stuff that kind of adds to that horror vibe that I was just mentioning. Sarah Connor is also a pretty solid character. Linda Hamilton's performance is great. I think she was really able to sell Sarah's unsureness of the situation and how she changes throughout the film as she tries to understand her situation. Also got to shout out the smartest character in film history, being that garbage truck driver who just runs away at the start. Something I don't really like about this film, however, is the future scenes. I just praise how they were filmed, but they do not work for me. I think it's because of how misty they are, but they really take me out of the story when I feel like it should be all gas, no brakes. But for the main action plot, I find most of the future scenes to be unnecessary, and while they definitely feel like the future, and Cameron's have captured as well, I don't feel like they add a lot to the actual movie. Also want to critique the police force in the movie because I have no idea why after the first 2 Sarah Connor murders, why they wouldn't immediately send a cop car to her house instead of they just wait around and making phone calls. This doesn't really affect much, but I just want to say I didn't like their plan. Overall, this is a pretty great action film, very impressive directed by James Cameron, 8.5 out of 10. Number 3, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. The second film in the Terminator franchise, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, is bigger, bolder, and better than the original film. Terminator 2 takes place 10 years after the first film. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator is sent back to 1994 to protect the 10-year-old son John Connor from a far more advanced cyborg, the T-1000. The story is very, very similar to the first film, but the twist that they added to the movie, finding the first film's Terminator protecting John Connor, is a great twist, which changes the dynamic of the characters. The characters in this film are much more energetic and alive than the first film. They feel like they have much more of a personality. And the characters are a lot more interesting compared to the first film, which in my opinion is a B-movie level story elevated by its great directing and effects. This movie's plot is much tighter and stronger than the first film, And a lot of this comes from the higher budget and more experience from James Cameron, but the story is just all gas, no brakes, and is structured very well. The way in which James Cameron's filmmaking abilities and technology has advanced since the first movie came out, just 7 years prior, is really impressive. The directing in this movie is kind of perfect. I've already said that he's one of the best action directors. I think that is easily best on display in this movie. From the moment Arnold yells "get down" to the end of the film, the movie is just perfect action scene after perfect action scene. The truck chase is amazing, going down a single path and aggressive. The truck relentlessly chasing down John Connor. Arnold getting in on the action to save John, making it look so effortless. The scale of this chase is amazing, and the movie does not slow down until the ending. Hospital escape is probably my favorite sequence of the movie, simultaneously watching Sarah try to escape while Arnold and T-1000 are trying to find her. It's so intense and well edited. Then when they converge with each other and the fight is amazing. The sequence is when they really get to see the power and the ability of T-1000. They feel so indestructible. The shot where he's moving through the bars is just so cool. The final fight at the factory is also obviously amazing. The sacrifice that Arnold makes is very touching and sad. I think his line saying, I now understand why you cry, and the effect of his character has had on John is really powerful. Robert Patrick is really great as the villain in this film. He's so robotic. The physical parts of his performance is great. His running, where he learned to run without making facial expressions or visible breathing, is really impressive. And then Hamilton's performance is also great. The way her character has changed since the first film feels so real. Her mix of rage and love in her performance and the uneasy relationship with Arnold is so good. The subplot of trying to destroy the Skynet products to save the future is a really clever subplot to add more to the story. The attack on the house followed by attack on the building is, however, probably my least favorite section of the film. I still think it's great and there's awesome action, and I love the decision for them to try and change the future. But my only problem with the movie as a whole is the lack of the T-1000 in this section. His presence adds so much to this film, and the lack of presence in this section removes some of the intensity. I feel like if they managed to tie him into this section of the film, pacing could have been slightly better. The lack of presence makes this section not as engaging. It's still good, but not as amazing as the rest of the film. Also, not really the movie's fault, but the fact that the sequels let you know that they've achieved nothing by this really hampers the impact of it all. The makeup in this film is also unbelievable. While I really like the first film's makeup, you could still tell what was real and what wasn't. But in this film, the makeup and practical effects are impossible to distinguish between what's real. The visual effects in this film were generationally good. They were game-changing when it came out, and it still holds up well today. Terminator 2 is also one of the greatest action films of all time, featuring unbelievable action scenes with electric pacing, amazing effects, great story, great characters. Terminator 2 gets a 9 out of 10. Number 2, Aliens. The sequel to Ridley Scott's sci-fi classic Alien, titled Aliens, is often considered one of the greatest sequels ever made, and that's for a good reason. This film is really good, but I should say that I very much prefer the first movie. Alien, to me, is a perfect 10 out of 10 movie. I love that movie. Great effects, great scares, great ensemble of characters, so it's a pretty tough act to follow up, and for the most part, James Cameron nails it. Transitioning the franchise from horror to more of an action film while keeping the horror undertones, Aliens tells the story of Ellen Ripley being sent on a mission alongside a group of Marines to a terraforming colony in order to restore contact, but upon arriving on the planet, they discover that colony is no more and has been taken over by the alien species, causing a battle for survival. The film does a very good job of leveling up what we had from the first film. It may seem very simple, and it is, but it's very common for the sequels to just have the same plot as the first film, so it's a pretty great way to see them level up the story. The first film was just one alien fighting a crew of cargo transporters. This film is about Marines fighting not just an alien, but aliens. So it's on a whole different level than the first movie. Also, takes ideas from the first film, managed to recreate similar ideas without just doing the same thing. For example, they have the android character, except this time they're a good guy. But for the audience and put in the same position as Ripley, we expect him to be bad. Also, the ending features a fake resolution. Day is saved when someone gets sucked out of that airlock, and it's like just once again great action scene, and somehow we're not expecting them to do just the exact same thing. And in terms of action, this film is pretty much perfect. Every action sequence is so intense and well crafted with an amazing mixture of practical and visual effects. Probably the best thing about this film is the dynamic between the Marines. Everyone stands out and feels like a unique person. The movie is also filled with great quotable moments, game over, man. It's game over. Hey Vasquez, have you been mistaken for a man? No, have you? Just great little lines, just funny stuff, which really stand out and make everyone feel unique. Also, even though this film is more of an action film than the first, it still keeps the horror elements and intensity of the situation. The Xenomorphs remain terrifying. The scariest scene for me is probably when they're attacking the medical bay. I love the reveal of them climbing through the roof. I love this scene. It's my favorite scene in the movie by far. Sound design in the film is also insane. There's so much detail and really adds to the intensity. Like there are scenes where we can hear gunfire, alien noises, that beeping sound, with the people screaming. It's just so much there. It's overwhelming you, adds to the intensity and really makes us feel like we are there and adds to its horror and chaos of it all. Paul Reiser is really good in this movie. I thought he did the scumbag, I'm smarter than everyone thing really well. His eventual death is incredibly satisfying. Sigourney Weaver is also great in this film. She was actually nominated for an Oscar for this movie, which I just want to say is pretty cool. The only thing that's holding this movie back for me is that I do not like Newt. I find her annoying. Most of the movie she's screaming, Ripley, Ripley! And I just could not stand it. I guess it's realistic. She's a kid who can't defend herself. But I just can't stand hearing her scream throughout this whole movie. Still, this film is great. Very good mixture of action and horror. One of the best sequels of all time. Great movie. 9 out of 10. Number 1, Titanic. My favorite film from James Cameron is Titanic. The 3-hour historic love epic that tells the story of a rich young woman named Rose, while being already engaged, falls in love with a poor artist named Jack while they are on board the infamous Titanic, destined for tragedy. Titanic is one of the most iconic and biggest films of all time. Despite people expecting the film to be a failure and flop at the box office, Titanic became the first film to reach $1 billion, making $1.84 billion in its original run, and tying the record for most Oscar wins of all time, 11 Oscar wins, including Best Picture. I think Titanic easily deserves all the acclaim it received for this movie. I love this film. There's so much I want to praise about the movie, so I do want to start with my few issues. They're pretty small, however, so they do not affect the film too much. My main issue of the movie, this near-perfect film, is that the dialogue is really on the nose in the first half of the movie. The amount of times they talk about how unsinkable the Titanic is to the point it's getting annoying. The worst dialogue is easily mentioning. There's a bit where someone mentioned that the painting is done by someone Van Gogh. Like, come on, man. What's the point of that? It's just annoying. I don't know if this on the nose dialogue really pissed me off as much as it pisses other people off, but thankfully it was not a problem for the second half. There's also a few editing errors in the first half. I feel like some scenes are very awkwardly edited and kind of jumping between cuts really quickly and oddly. And which is odd because the second half of the movie has some amazing editing, so I guess maybe they did not put as much effort into these scenes. A particularly bad one was the moment in the King of the World scene where he's pumping his fist, and the continuity is just not right between cuts. It's not a massive problem, but it was very much annoying me in that first half. This whole movie is very impressive and really defines what an epic should be. Pretty much every aspect of filmmaking is done to an extraordinary level in this film. Some production design is incredible. They created many replicas of the Titanic for filming, and it's so detailed and large. There really isn't anyone other than James Cameron who I could see making such a large, detailed set for this film. The score for the film by James Horner is beautiful and very memorable. Celine Dion's iconic song, My Heart Will Go On, is one of the greatest, most iconic songs of all time. The emotions you get from listening to this song and how it ties into the ending of the film and the relationship between Rose and Jack, it's beautiful. Also, the background part of the music is used in the score throughout the film, so it really adds up to the build-up of the role. Then we finally get the big song at the end. It's amazing. Cinematography is beautiful. It's a very well-lit film, and cinematography often focuses on the scale and epicness of what we're watching. I love how in the nighttime scenes you can actually see what's happening. Obviously, even though it should be complete darkness, the lighting still keeps us in that atmosphere while making it so we can actually see what's happening, which I'm very thankful for. It's easily James Cameron's best directed film. The amount of detail and talent that goes into filming something this large, something on this scale, for all these great, incredible practical effects, is something that really only a few directors can do. The amount of moving parts between characters that you would have to keep up keep track of to create this film would be a nightmare for anyone, so somehow James Cameron is able to pull it off. Let's talk about the first half of the movie. I already mentioned a few problems I have with the first half, but none of these problems affect the second half of the film. The first half of the film builds up the relationship between Rose and Jack. The chemistry between DiCaprio and Kate Winslet is amazing. The scenes between them very easy to become engaged with, and I believe that these two are actually falling in love. The film was very easygoing for the first half and sucks us into their relationship. I feel addicted to them. You want them to get together and for us to leave her dickhead fiance for Jack. And we finally get to the moment where they get together and have sex in that car. All is well, and then bam, the iceberg hits and the film turns into one of the most intense action-packed films I've ever seen. The connection between Jack and Rose is put to ultimate test as they risk their own lives and safety in order to help each other. Jack gets arrested and Rose goes all the way down into the part of the ship that's already filling up with water just to save him. It's so powerful. My favorite moment of the movie by far is when Rose actually gets onto the lifeboat and she sees Jack standing up there. The shot going down is amazing. I love that shot. Jack's leaving himself behind and Rose makes a decision to jump back onto the ship, abandoning her safely because she can't leave Jack behind. They meet up back up with each other and they're kissing and he calls her stupid. It's just so perfect. I love it so much. So many other great moments as the ship is sinking, the band playing the music as they go down, that old couple lying in bed together. These small emotionally impactful moments leave a large impact on the audience. And the final moments between Jack and Rose is so heartbreaking and iconic. Whole movie is driven by the connection that these two have for each other. See all they have to go through to be with each other, only for Jack to not even survive. It's so sad. Then Rose having to summon the power to blow the whistle for her safety, having to leave Jack's boy behind. It's really powerful stuff. I didn't cry because I'm a man. You know me. I don't cry. But it was still pretty sad. The performances by Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio are amazing. The chemistry between them felt so real they could easily believe they were in love. Billy Zane's also great in this film. It's very easy to find him dislikable but also believable. Titanic is one of the biggest films of all time. The scale of the film is incredible and it features James Cameron's greatest directing. The movie has some of the best practical and impressive filmmaking I've ever seen. Some of the most intense action sequences of all time. This is easily my favorite James Cameron film, 9 out of 10. Thank you for watching my video. Please like and subscribe. Comment below how you would rank James Cameron's films. And before you leave, I will now perform My Heart Will Go On. Near, far, wherever you are, I believe that the heart does go on. Why does the heart go on? Once more, you open the door and you're here in my heart, and my heart will go on and on. Let me get a big boot up. You're here, there's nothing I fear, and I know that my heart will go on. We'll stay forever this way. You are safe in my heart, and my heart will go on and on. Thank you.